By the late 1990s, the film industry had reached a quiet consensus regarding J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings. While the story was a global masterpiece, the logistical reality of filming it was seen as an impossible risk. The sheer scale of the narrative, with its continent-spanning geography and massive armies, was considered completely unfilmable. The visual effects required to bring that world to life simply did not exist yet. The director who eventually stepped forward to lead the project was a New Zealander named Peter Jackson. He was a complete outsider to the Hollywood machine. He hadn't attended a film school, had no Hollywood family connections, and worked far from traditional studios. This raises a specific question. How does an untrained filmmaker successfully translate a world of this complexity into a tangible, physical reality? Jackson's journey began in a quiet coastal town in New Zealand, physically and culturally removed from the production hubs of Los Angeles or London. His primary entry point into filmmaking was this mechanical Super 8 camera. It was a simple tool with no automation, requiring the user to understand the physical mechanics of the lens and the film. Without access to mentors or structured training, Jackson used this camera to learn the mechanics of cinema through trial and error, figuring out how to create tension and emotion by simply trying different angles. He utilized everyday objects to build his early stories, turning his childhood backyard into a miniature battlefield using worn toy soldiers and handmade effects. This experimental approach eventually scaled into his first feature film, Bad Taste. The production was defined by extreme constraints. Jackson worked a regular job during the week to fund the movie, shooting only on weekends with friends and building every prop by hand from whatever materials they could find. Bad Taste demonstrated that a relentless DIY energy could produce results that normally required professional budgets and studio permission. When Jackson moved from low-budget independent projects to the massive scope of The Lord of the Rings, he kept that same hands-on philosophy, refusing to compromise on the physical reality of the world. Translating Tolkien's imagination into a physical space required a massive world-building effort, constructing entire villages and armor sets that felt raw and tangible. However, he faced a major roadblock. The 1990s-era visual effects were too limited to portray non-human characters with the emotional depth the story required. Relying on his backyard roots, Jackson and his team invented the tools they were missing, pushing motion capture technology to a fidelity that didn't exist before. This system allowed them to translate the physical weight and subtle expressions of human actors directly into digital data. Jackson wasn't just following a script, he was building a new technical infrastructure for filmmaking, applying the resourcefulness of his childhood to an industrial-scale production. The release of the trilogy sparked an immediate global reaction, drawing massive crowds and earning wide critical recognition. The success of the trilogy shifted industry perceptions, demonstrating that a project of this immense logistical and technical scale could be executed successfully. Later in his career, Jackson moved away from the world of fantasy to apply his technical skills to a very different subject, archival history. He used his expertise in restoration and digital effects to bring color and life to century-old World War I archives, focusing on the human faces of the soldiers in the trenches. This pivot highlights his belief that technology is most valuable when it is used to forge a human connection between the audience and the subject on screen. The legacy of Peter Jackson suggests that creating a world-changing narrative doesn't require unlimited resources. It requires the imagination to see what is missing and the persistence to capture the very first frame.